Welcome, everybody, to another special episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. We're here with Zahurah, who is a science tutor. She's given us some time to come and share her journey away from teaching into tutoring. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let's start right at the beginning. What's your experience with teaching, and how did you get into tutoring?
Okay, so I was teaching. I did my chemistry degree and at university, and then went on to do a PGCE in science. After teaching for a few years, COVID hit, and I had my babies as well. So that was my first and foremost priority, my children. So I was thinking, how do I, you know, get back into work, thinking about going back into work full time. It just wasn't feasible for me. I had quite two children close in age. It just wasn't going to work out. And then I had some students who needed some help and decided that we could do online tutoring. So I started with Skype because that's the platform that everyone was used to. And then slowly over COVID, I noticed that Zoom grew. So tried that out and absolutely fine. It worked really well. And online they had you can buy online these tablets where you can write on the screen, because my concern was, how do I tutor online just talking at the student? I can't draw, because science, you need to draw diagrams, you need to explain things, everything needs to be very interactive. So my concern was, how do I deal with that? So looked online, found that there's like a drawing tablet. They mainly use it for art,
Yeah, I know
in
what you
art
mean.
classes. And I was like, let's try that out. And it worked wonders. So we took it from there, and it was really good. Because of my background in science, I'm fairly confident with the content. I know what examiners want to see in the exam. So I didn't have to do too much lesson prep, if that makes sense. There
Yeah.
wasn't too much lesson, that there was a bit of lesson prep, but not an overload of it. So it worked out with my children. It worked out looking after my babies and doing lesson prep for my tuitions. So that's how it started. And then I slowly started to realize that, it's good income. You make good income because of the expertise you have, and then you see the students grow and develop. And because it's like because I do one-to-one, I've been doing one-to-one, and seeing them transform in a short matter of time, because in a school environment you have to accommodate for so many students, and on a one-to-one basis it's a lot more, you get more done basically. So seeing their growth in a very short amount of time was very, very rewarding for me. And I decided from then that's what I wanted to do. It worked out for me in terms of my family, financially, reward wise,
It's
win
like
all
tick,
around.
tick, tick, isn't it? Like the reasons we should be going out to work is to make sure that, one, we feel fulfilled, but also we keep the roof over our heads and keep the lights on at home, is what I call it. But also, like, we want to provide for our families, and actually see our families every now and again would be quite nice as well. As teachers, that often was quite rare. Or I don't know. I often just speak for myself rather than for everybody. But I also found that even when I was teaching full time and I was back with my family in the evenings or at weekends, I often was somewhere else in my mind anyway. So I wasn't very present. And now I can do that. Although I think sometimes the business still takes over. And sometimes I'm still not as present. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on that, I think. That's an amazing transition though, like, and quite fast, and not actually kind of forced upon you as such. I mean, the timing of COVID and then you having your children has kind of meant that this opportunity was there for you, was ready to take the opportunity. What do you think made you go towards that tuition rather than trying to find, say, another job that fit in around your family?
I just couldn't, because of the teaching. That's where, my expertise was. That's where I
Mm,
felt comfortable with. And so tuition is like, to apply for another job elsewhere, under COVID with my kids, it wasn't an option for me. It
Yeah.
was either tuition or no work.
Okay.
You know, thankfully, I have a husband who works and supports as well. But in
Mm.
this day and age, you definitely need the two parties to support.
It's
Um,
hard, isn't it? Yeah.
so I live in London, so it's extra hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I think um, just my confidence in my teaching abilities. And I've done like weekend tutoring for relatives who
Yeah.
needed the extra help as well. So I think that's where it came from, like tuition. That's the path I wanted to take because at the time, that's the only path I saw that was favorable with my family life.
The move. I mean, because I often say this to other people, like your skills would automatically go over to your tuition, and actually they'll be amplified because, like you say, either one-to-one or small groups, you're going to see this change and transition with the children you work with or young people you work with. You're now not having to deal with the 30 to 35 children in your class. You can be laser focused on the ones that are in front of you and really push them and stretch them in the right direction. I tend to say to people, don't worry too much about the actual delivery. That's something you will figure out because you've got those skills. The things
Yeah.
that are often that are not missed, but are maybe worried about is the business side of the tutoring. How did you make that transition? What was that like?
This was probably by far the most difficult. I have very little business acumen. I just don't understand it. Until now, I'm still trying to figure things out.
Mm,
You know, now that tuition business is on the rise, and I hear a lots of other tutors, they're doing really, really well. I just don't know how they get their business mindset done. There's a lot of
okay.
social media um, posts and they do Instagram reels, and I just don't know none of it. So
Yeah.
I think the business side of things is difficult for me as well.
Mm,
I, admin as well, because you have to include admin, keep on top of finances, promote your business, doing all of that. It is definitely a lot. I'm slowly learning that you can outsource people to do these things for you. There are apps or websites like Tutorbird that you can learn to use and things like that. So
yeah.
that's where I'm on the process at the moment,
Okay.
learning more of the business side of things. And at the moment, I'm actually using this summer to transition fully into group tutoring. This year, during the GCSEs, I found that, well, it was last year as well, but now that I have even more students this year,
Mm,
it was like I'm doing a lesson one to one, and then I'm repeating the lesson again, the next lesson, and the next lesson. So about 4 hours in a block, I'm repeating the
yeah.
exact same lesson in four
Mm,
hours. And it does make sense to just group them together.
mm,
So I am transitioning into groups, and it's taken me a while to figure how that works, but
yeah.
I think I've got it now.
I think you've got it. It's there are common questions that come up, and it's usually about pricing. It's then it goes into how do I transition towards groups? How can I get groups okay? And again, the same advice that I said just a few moments ago, like don't worry too much about the delivery and the teaching because you will figure that out. Your skill set has that covered. And I know it might feel like going into the unknown, and whether you're online or face to face, the online groups or face to face groups, you'll get a feel for what will work for the children in front of you. However, if you feel like there's something not working, don't be afraid to change it. Like that kind of advice you get given as a new teacher. It's like when you do that observed lesson for the first time and it goes wrong, but you go with it anyway. Like you because you planned it, so you're going to do it. And then your mentor, if they're positive, if it's been a positive experience for you, will say, look, it was a good lesson, but at that point it started to go wrong. Why didn't you just change it? And you'll go, well, I thought about it, but I did this instead and it was on the plan. I didn't want to deviate. You deviate all the time as a teacher because you work with what's happening in front of you and you will make it work. So sometimes it's just having the experience and then developing it as you go, which we were talking about off camera, actually, wasn't we, a bit earlier on. So tell us a little bit about how you're going to figure it out or what you've learned this year about transitioning to groups.
So one of my biggest concerns was how do I get enough students to group them? So my biggest thing has always been getting enough students.
Mm,
I've always done it. I've grown my student list organically by word of mouth, and it has
yeah,
grown. And that's probably why it's taken me a lot longer to grow it.
sure.
But I've grown it organically.
And you were saying that that might be why you've grown so slowly. Why do you think it's like that's the reason? Is there another option, do you think?
Well, I wasn't aware of the social media aspect of things. I didn't know how to use social media to grow my business.
Okay.
I wasn't very active on social media in terms of like putting myself out there.
Yeah,
So I just didn't know how to use any of it.
fair
Call
enough.
me old school, but
No.
yeah, that's it. So yeah,
So it's leveraging some kind of social media aspect or something online. I mean, because it doesn't have to be social media. It can just be online or perhaps even like a watered down version. So lots of the time when we say social media, we think Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. When actually there's places like Reddit is quite a good place to find people. There's lots of residential groups in the Reddit forums where you can go, and actually it's a little bit freer in there to advertise. And again, it's kind of an untapped market almost. LinkedIn's another good one, which we often reject as social media, but it's just social media for professionals mainly. So
yeah,
these are good places where you can go and behave in a way where it's respectful to others. I mean, we should all behave in a way that's respectful for others. There's just that fear around social media that we get trolls, particularly as you start to grow and get into bigger places. And well, for anybody who's growing an audience anywhere, there's just that element of risk. I know that I've spoken with others about this, where we don't go onto certain social media platforms because of the negativity there.
yeah,
But it is what we make of it. I often say money's in a similar way. Sometimes we see these tools as the enemy, whereas actually it's the people. Like, and it's the people we have to kind of try and get rid of rather than the actual tool itself. We wouldn't pick up a hammer and try to screw something into the wall with it. We need to use the tools in the right way, and we often blame the tool rather than the people behind the screen. And it's social media is weird like that. It brings out all sorts of weird people.
with this, it's such a powerful platform that it comes the good and the bad. Like
Yeah, exactly.
in Spider-Man, with great power comes great
It
responsibility.
it's
So it
true.
can be it can be an amazing thing. It's a catalyst for growing your business. And but again, it comes with the downside.
Mm,
Fortunately for me, I haven't experienced any downsides of it yet.
good.
I've started using social media, and I think the results of the students and testimonials kind of speak for itself. So I've
Mm,
learned that testimonials are key. Trying to get video testimonials, I think that works most effectively because that's what people want to see. They want to see results. It's not just the process all the time, but I think what grasps the parents is your outcome. What have you done with prior students? What um, evidence have you shown that uh, you're right in terms of tuition for my child? And
yeah.
that will only come if you have ready testimonials by students to show how you've done it. And then parents will be like, okay, they're ready to trust you because you've got evidence for that.
Do you
um,
do you have like do you have a website?
I've just recently created one. Yes.
Nice. Do you have your business set up on Google, like so the Google business?
Not yet. This is something I'm undergoing this summer.
So
So
your testimonial stuff that you're talking about is amazing. And I'd pick your brains. How do you get people to agree to do video testimonials? That's what I need to do. That's like something I'd love to be able to introduce. And make sure, because it's for free, register your business on for Google and Google Business. It's like a drop down thing when you sign into Google, but
yeah,
it puts you on the map as well. But it's really easy to collect testimonials. You just send people a link and they just do it.
that's right. I've looked into that and it's something I've put on my list for the summer.
Mm.
So definitely we'll get onto that. In terms of video testimonials, I've collected a bank of students and even ex-students that I've done, and I didn't think to do video testimonials. I've got
Mm.
relationship with them in terms of like a yearly happy birthday
Yeah.
or an Eid Mubarak.
Yeah.
So I message a quick short message, so I've got relationship with my previous students. So that's how I can ask them to do me a favor. And some parents don't, actually not some, most parents don't feel comfortable with their children being out there on the internet.
Yeah.
So I just do like like a shadow. Like I don't have their face on there. It's just their voice talking about me, questioning them about the experience, a bit like a short interview kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's really
Or
interesting. Yeah.
so I think having that out there, multiple students of different ages of the people that I'm trying to attract, for example, year 7
Mm,
to 11, get different ages so parents of different ages of the students can see how it has been effective for their child. So even parents that are not too sure whether their child need tuition, I'll have one saying that this student was already doing fine in their
mm,
lessons, but they wanted to be ahead of the game. They wanted to be the best of their class. They wanted to get
mm.
the highest mark, and this is how I helped them. And you know,
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't praise that enough because I think that's unbelievable. And also the social proof that goes along with that. What we need to do and be mindful of when we're particularly growing our audience is that people need to come into our world and we need to develop the trust with them ASAP. And the quickest way to do that is to show them results and let them listen, read, or watch testimonials.
that's right. I
And
strongly agree with that
yeah.
because it is this responsibility and trust is big. And this is the reason why I put so much effort into my lessons because these are paying clients. They are trusting you, they are paying you
Mm,
a bit of money. And it's our responsibility if we're the takers of their money. We need to put our effort every single minute counts. They're
yeah.
expecting high
Yeah.
impact lessons and this is what we have as tutors have to deliver. So it's
Mm,
important that we put our passion into it to
mm,
help this child grow, develop, and meet the expectations of their parents.
yeah.
Clarity with the parents is very important as well. I give
Yeah.
my the parents updates in terms of how the students are doing,
Mm,
and not a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, because with so many students, it's difficult to do. And especially now that I transition into group, imagine if you have like 60 students, 50 students, how do you do that?
yeah.
So it's definitely about a short uh, uh, analysis, sending to parents, keeping that relationship with parents. I think that relationship has really helped because from one parent, just from one parent, I got another 6 students because she was so impressed with how I was open with her in terms of updating her about her children, her seeing the transformation in their child. I also create booklets. This is something that tutors don't have to do, but
Mm,
I find for me creating booklets help. It keeps them engaged every single minute of that lesson. You
mm,
know, especially going to groups, some people might get disengaged and go somewhere else in their head. So
mm,
I create these booklets so that they supplement our lessons. And on top of that, they end up being their own revision notes. So if they've got an
mm.
upcoming test, they don't have to recreate revision notes. It's there and they
That's
just fill it
amazing.
in. Yeah, they just fill it in. And so they're engaged in the lesson. They don't
What I
get
love
bored.
about this, and this is what everybody should be taking notes on in this particular part, because that's going over and above what most would consider a tutoring session to be, because that's adding a bit of value that's not just about that hour or
Mhm.
however long your session is. That's got what we call a tail to it. They take that away and it's something they can go back and use over and over and over again to impact their learning and success later on. I mean, that is like putting value at the center of what we offer. And if you do that, your business will grow. It just will grow because people will talk about it, they'll share it, your service will become infectious, people will want it, people will come and find it.
I'm hoping so. It's just
Mm,
putting it out there for me.
yeah.
I feel like I have all the tools for a perfect tutoring lesson. It's amazing. I'm really happy with it. But I just getting it out there on the maps to draw in students so they can benefit. And that's all it is for me. That's where my dilemma is at the moment. So I'm working on that this summer.
Great. And that is, once you figure that out, I mean, being visible is the number one thing, making sure you are out there in front of I did just before we started recording, about, well, half an hour before, I did just a very short podcast about ideal client and the difference between an ideal client and a client, and also a nightmare client as well. We spoke about a little bit, but there's something which I've been pondering a lot. And a lot of it is about, and a lot of the issues around what we're talking about here, finding people, is about looking at who you're talking to, like having that idea in your head about who is it, who is the person that I don't know yet that is going to potentially come and hire me as a tutor. Now you do know what these people are like and what they're looking for, or you, I tend to say one person. Who is it that you've worked with in the past that is the absolute best client you've ever worked with? Every single message or video, or whether it's an audio thing or text thing, that's who you're aiming at. That's who you're talking to, because it will land with people, or land with the right people. But then you've still got to get that message to where they are. And it's that often we can do this ideal client work and we can really think deeply about them. But the hardest bit about all of it is, how can I get this message in front of those people? Where are they? Because often that's the bit where we struggle. And whether that's through paid ads sometimes, whether that's through being a little bit more open to social media, but what channels still, that still leaves a question. Like, what are they watching? Where are they consuming their content? How, even if they are, if I know where they're consuming their content, how can I get my stuff there as well? So there's
Yeah.
always these little question marks along the way. And there's no real, I'd love to say there's an easy answer. The easiest answer is to hire some kind of social media ad expert who would build your audience for you based on your requirements. And then they will have the responsibility of putting it in front of them and then getting you results. But that can be expensive. And if you're starting out, that's not the best way to go about it. It's just not, because trust me, I've done this experiment before many times, and it doesn't always give you the results that you'd want for the amount that you've spent. Like, the return on investment can be very low. I did an experiment last September where I was like, right, 4 weeks, I'm going to put £1,000 into Facebook ads. I got nothing. You know, it was very little. And for £1,000 then, that was quite a big investment.
Yeah.
I was willing to give it a go. I was willing to give it a go because sometimes it just takes that little bit of a risk. I don't think it is a waste of money. I think lots of people had eyes on the business, which is one thing. But were they the ideal clients? I don't think so. And that was with a Facebook expert who did that with, like I did that with. So there are ways to accelerate it, but you need to make sure that you're really careful who you worked with. And like you said, like, there are people you can outsource some of these jobs to, but find the right ones. I've got another
This is
question
the
for
biggest
you.
one.
Got another
Yeah.
question for you. We spoke about this off camera a little bit, and this is something that comes up a lot when professionals like us, like trained teachers and experienced teachers, say, do you know what? I'm going to go and run a tuition business. I want to grow something for myself that fits around my life and my family and the things, how I want my life to be. And people will say, what, you're going to give up your steady income and this amazing teaching job to take a risk in the business world? And we always have these self-doubts anyway, because we're all human. There's always that risk. And even if you're super risk averse, there will still be some questions in your mind. Is that something that happened to you? Did you have people around you that were kind of supporters of the idea? Did you have people around you that were kind of asking you questions like, are you sure this is what you want to do?
In my circumstance, not really, because I had my children just before COVID, so I was on a break anyway. So I wasn't really doing anything in terms of working. I was mainly looking after my children.
Okay.
And so doing something was, you know, quite supported by everybody.
Okay.
And it started off very minimal, like one or about 2 or 3 sessions in the
Mm.
week, and that's just 2 or 3 hours out of the whole entire
Yeah.
week, and that's manageable with very
Mm.
little babies. That was very manageable. And then, once I got the gist of it, it just, word of mouth grew a little bit, and my husband works during the daytime. I do the sessions in the evening, which works out because students are at school during the day.
Yeah.
So it works out that he's able to watch over them in the evening, and I get maybe an hour of tuition or 2 hours of tuition. Barely anything, isn't it, for compared to the whole entire day? So it worked out like that for me. And then it grew and grew and grew, and to where I am now. And I still do it in the evening time.
Mm.
And my husband still has his work during the daytime. It
Yeah.
works out as a balance for us. We communicated it, and we have like shared schedules. I do weekend as well. So now that the kid's a little bit older, I have Like I dedicate Saturdays to my family days, Sundays, all day tuition. So it works out for me. It works out for me really, really well in that regard.
Well, I wrote down the word balance because that's often something we end up losing sight of.
Yeah.
Even as a teacher, yes, but also when we start to go towards the business and we go, actually, this is something which can provide a full-time income. And then you go, oh, I'll do
Exactly.
3 hours. Oh, I'll do 4 hours a day. That'll be fine. I'll work till 9 at night. And then suddenly you've lost that. How do you stay boundaried?
Um, for me, it's students are at school, so the maximum I could do is from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Three
Okay.
hours is the maximum I could do. So there's my cap because I have to get the kids ready for bed and dinner and all of that
Okay.
happens at that time anyway. So that's my cap.
Yeah,
I'm capped because I have a young growing family.
sure.
So that's the only reason. And for extended family, like my parents, siblings, in-laws, I dedicate Saturdays. So if they
Mm,
hold family functions, I dedicate Saturdays that way. And
mm,
I group a lot more, not group, I have a lot more students on Sundays. So
mm,
Sundays for me is like a working day. I
mm.
work from 10 a.m. in the morning till 7 p.m. in the evening. Some
Wow.
might say it's excessive, but it it works for me
Mm,
because I've given the Saturday to my families and everything like that. Sundays is like a working day. Weekdays only a couple of hours out of the whole entire day.
mm,
So that's my work-life balance. I spend majority of the time with my family and still I'm able to make a really good income on this timetable that I've created, which is suitable for everyone.
mm.
In terms of my family, my immediate family, my extended in-laws, and communicating that as well, making everyone aware about your timetable as well really, really helps. So
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
know that that's really similar? I have a really similar start to you. To what you're talking about. That's how I almost mirrored that. So evenings till about 8. I used to work all day on a Sunday
yeah,
because it was just the day that worked. And really similar. I didn't do anything on a Saturday. I kept it spare because I did have, well, a large family. I've got 4 children.
oh
At the
wow,
time, 2 of them were quite small, but they were the reason for wanting to try and make something work.
yeah, yeah,
And so I didn't want to, but I mean, I think I did go slightly too much because what happened is someone would go, I can do a Saturday, and like my self-employed brain would go, come on, Rich, you need to say yes because you need the money. And then once you said yes to one, it opened the
yeah,
floodgates to others. And that's why I ask about the boundary question, because I something which I struggled with at the start massively because I had the mindset of I just need to try and make the money, just need to try and make the money. And when I shifted towards value, actually it's not the money, it's about the value you provide,
that's
which
right, yeah,
then means you can increase your prices, which means you're leveraging back time into your life,
that's
which
right,
led me towards groups. You can see how it kind of phases in your business start to
yeah,
go, and it's actually you start focusing on these things. They just start to happen, not without the learning periods and getting things wrong and allowing time for it to work out. But yeah, boundaries are important, and yours sounds like a forced one because you've got young children, and so you can't
yeah,
go beyond that time. You can't say yes.
yeah. If I had growing children, it probably might be a different story.
Yeah,
But this is what works for
yeah,
me at the moment,
yeah.
and
Okay.
I think setting my priority, like writing down my priorities, making a business
Mm,
plan, and thinking about what my priorities are in life. I think that's what really, really helped, and reevaluating them every now and again. So every 3 months, I go through like self-reflection in terms of where am I at in my life? What
mm,
is it that I wanted to do? And I look at what I wrote down 3 months ago. So this helps me shift my focus if I find that I'm trailing off by reviewing myself. It grounds me, it centers me
yeah.
again.
Oh,
So I
I
think
love this. This is something else everybody needs to write down right now. Is this whole write down some priorities, and you can call this whatever you like. It doesn't matter what it is. You can do this as a vision board if you want. Again, I'm at the risk of making people roll their eyes a little bit with vision boards, but setting out an idea of where you want to be at some point in the future. I quite like the 5-year plan myself. Some
Yeah.
people don't. Some people prefer longer or shorter. But how are you going to get there needs to be broken down into steps as mini priorities. And if you then spend time and you make time to reflect, what have you done? What haven't you done? You can reflect on whether it was the stuff that you didn't do. How important was it anyway? If you didn't do it, has it made a difference? Should you have done it? Could it be even better? And you start using all of these kind of tools. I mean, I feel like now you lied to me in the beginning by saying, you had no business acumen. This is exactly what business acumen is. Like
Really?
yeah, you set out a priority, you have a purpose, and then you go back to it and you go, actually, is this my purpose? Has it changed? Is there something different? Is there something that happened over the last 3 months that's made me change direction? Is it still purposeful, or is my original plan where I need to go back to? And if you do that and you do it often, you're always taking steps forward, even if they're small steps, you're always moving forward. But also you're just aligning yourself with what we now call our North Star, because of the session I did with Sharon about 2 months ago now, where she talks about this North Star in your life. That's where you're heading. That's your purpose. If you're saying yes to things that don't point you towards your North Star, that's a problem. But it also allows you to start saying no. Like, if your purpose is making sure that you're cooking dinner and you're around to make sure you can put your children to bed and have that quality time, you are going to say no to that person saying, I can only work 8 till 9. And you're going to go, well, that's not me then. I can't do that. I'm really sorry. And like my poor mindset 5 years ago would have been, I just need the money. And I would have said yes. But your purpose says, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I think that allows me to really enjoy it, because I'm not feeling overwhelmed in terms of I'm not feeling guilty about not spending enough time with my family, and I'm not feeling overworked by my business. GCSE period is another story, but
Sure.
overall, I've got really good job satisfaction from this. And it all starts with making a priority list, reevaluating yourself now and again. And, I think that really, really, really creates that sense of reward for you, happiness as well. And in this day and age, it's so important, because, our parents grew up having to do things that, like my parents, they just had to get on with it in life. This generation, we're looking not for that, we're looking for a better quality of life. It's not about survival, it's more to do with quality of life. So I think we're very fortunate to be living in a day and age where I can just, sort anything out for my kids, do everything, and then within the next 5 minutes, go to a separate room, turn on my laptop, and get ready to work, and not have to wake up 6 a.m. in the morning, get the kids ready, send them to day school, extortionate prices, by the way. and then drop them off at my mum's, and then pick them up in the evening, and then go to work, and then bring work home. And I know of many parents who do this, and I wasn't willing to go down that road. I would rather not work, in my sense, if I'm able to. That's that. I'm happy that I'm able to share my experience with students. I'm happy that so many students can benefit from the lessons that I give them, and it really helps.
Amazing. I mean, I just feel like that's a really nice place to wrap it up, because you spoke about some really important things here. Like, there was what I'm getting the sense of is that I'm not going to talk about the tuition, it's just you as a person, is that there's real sense of that community. Families are really like important aspect of your life, and you're creating this business around those core values, which also other people that you reach out to within your tuition business are also going to appreciate. And they might not know that that's in your core values, but the fact that you have that in your life, it's going to come through in the way that you interact with people, and then they're going to connect with that, and maybe on a really unconscious level. Even, I don't know whether you put that out there in that kind of, in that personal branding way at the moment. I'm going to suggest not, because you don't do a lot of the social media stuff, but you might do when you're connecting with people, when they come to you as a almost like a sales conversation, which is way too businessy, but like someone phones you up and says, oh, do you know, I really want some tutoring. Like the way that you interact with them, that's going to come through. And I think that's the other thing you said was about happiness. And why would we replace our stressful teaching job with a stressful business and not put happiness at the center of why we're trying to do it? And that's just for ourselves on a personal level, but also for the people that we work with. And
That's
all this
right.
stuff sounds really obvious, but we often miss it because we're worried about how we're going to build groups, or we're worried about how we're going to find the next client, or we're worried about one cohort finishing and finding the next one. But if you put these things at the heart of what you offer, I'm not saying this is the be all and end all, but you're going to be far more, I suppose, less stressed
Hmm.
than you would if you didn't even think about it. So put that happiness and your core values at the heart of everything that you do, and you can't go far wrong. So I want to end with one more question. That is, if you had a brand new tutor in front of you and they were saying, look, I'm really looking for some advice. What could you give me? What would be the number one thing you'd want them to consider?
In my honest opinion, I would say seek some professional help. And the reason why I say this is because I've grown my tuition business organically, and it's been very, very slow. Um, but recently, looking into this year, looking into someone professional who knows how the tuition business works, how to grow it, and how to upscale it, they can direct you in where to go. They can direct you as what you need to do here. They go through with you in the steps that you need to take. It's very much, you get rid of all of that.
Mm,
What do I do? How do I grow my tuition business? How do I group it? How do I, all the questions that
yeah.
you want answered, this is what you do. Another thing is on Facebook, there are some amazing tutoring groups because tutoring is on the rise. There's lots of tutors that gather together, form groups. And in these groups, you can ask whatever. You can ask
Mm,
people like, how much are you paying for this subject for
mm,
GCSE? How much are you paying for that? That way you can get an average idea of what the average rate is. You
mm,
can ask any questions. For example, some tutors are saying they're finding the admin side of things very overwhelming, to the point where others suggest, look, research into TutorBird. They share
mm,
a link. Here's a link for TutorBird. This is a
mm,
video. This is what they do. There's so much support out there,
mm,
and but I would say start off by seeking professional help.
mm.
And then there are ones out there that aren't that don't cost an arm and a leg.
I
In all
know.
honesty, there are ones out there that don't cost an arm and a leg, and it's really, really useful. If you want
This
to
was
save yourself time, stress, headache, get professional help.
that's kind of music to my ears for obvious reasons. And I think as
Yeah.
well, the whole thing about cost, like when I first looked at support, it put me off because everybody was thousands of pounds. And
At first, yeah.
yeah, and I was like, do you know what? There wasn't really anybody out there at a position where I could go and ask for support in a way that was affordable, particularly right at the beginning, which is why I started growing the group. And then workshops that were accessible were like a really reasonable rate, and then the 8 or was going to be a 12-week course in the new year at a rate which is really affordable with payment plans that isn't thousands of pounds, but I think it's thousands of pounds worth of value. That's what I genuinely believe. And I want to make sure people feel like they have a place to go. And that it doesn't have to be me. There'll be people who would like come into my group and go, no, this guy's not for me. But I know there are others out there now because I've made connections with them. And I know that people will work in an ethical way. And that's what I want in my world. I want to make sure it's authentic, that we're not just here to make a quick buck and then get out the way again. This is long term. And I want to make sure the tuition world is well supported and that people at all stages have something that they can access. So that is kind of music to my ears. And thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting. I've loved hearing your journey away from school into this. And I love your reasons as well. I love the fact that you've got this happiness and your family at the heart and the reason of why you do it. And I know there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of the tutors who will end up listening to this will go, that's exactly why I'm doing it. And so you're paving the way for others to go, I know that if Zahurah's doing it, we can do it as well.
Thank you. Thank you
No, you're
so much.
welcome. You're
It's
welcome.
a pleasure to share my experience. And thank you for having me.
My pleasure too. Thank you so much. I hope we make connections soon in the future. And if there's anything else that you need, or if you want to share in any other way and you feel like you've got something else to offer, you know exactly where I am. You're more than welcome to attend again.
Thank you. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.